Okay, hopefully everybody can hear me. Perfect. Let me know if you can hear me or not. And I'll begin. Okay. Okay. Welcome to How We Got Here to Genealogy. I'm Brian Nash. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Okay. And I'm going to try something here. I don't know if this will work. If I can switch this to here. Okay. Okay. So, yeah, I'm here to answer your questions today. I'm just going to talk a little bit about breaking down brick walls. I guess I don't need my earphones on. I'm not listening to anything right yet. Let's make sure my audio is working here, though. And I'm going to send my audio out and make sure it's there. And this seems to be working, so according to this. Okay, just give me one quick second while I fix something. While I'm doing that, I'm just going to black out for a quick minute.
Cross the Atlantic with nothing but names, Irish and Scottish blood in our veins. Work the mines and the boats in the land, built this life with calloused hands. That's how we got.
Okay. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about today. I'm going to answer any questions you might have about your family tree, and your family history research. Okay. See something different there. So I'm going to just talk a little bit first about breaking down brick walls. This is a quick strategic guide to solving genealogy mysteries. Now, these are some very common sense tips, but often we forget them. And I will have this available on my website as a download by the end of this live stream, and then I'll put it up as a PDF that you can read sometime then it'll be listed in the description when this video goes as a replay. So one of the first things you need to do is re-examine your plan. So that's seems simple enough. And please excuse me, I do have a bit of a cold today, so yeah, you want to re-examine your plan. So before you start searching for new records, sort of critically review what you've already have and define your research question. Again, make sure it's a clearly defined, because often that can and create a new research question as well, because often that can be a problem. You wind up searching for the wrong thing. And then what you want to do is take every single document and put it in chronological order. This will help visualize any gaps. Will also help you reconfirm any consistencies in ages, locations, and it reveals a little bit about the ancestor's life in context. Okay, and then once you've done looking at all the records you have, you're going to do what's called the fan club method. It's not quite what you think about when you normally think about fan clubs, but it is. It stands for friends and family, friends, associates, and neighbors. Basically, what you want to do is start searching the people around your ancestors, because often they hold the key to a missing link. When there's very often often when you're doing your research, especially when you get to the point where you're making the leap over to Europe, you have limited information, such as you might it's very common, the first record you might have of an ancestor is a death record of their child, even not their own, possibly a child, and that might just list their parent as being born from Ireland, Poland, wherever. It does not give you a specific location, and that can be a big leap. I think of I had a client once that was looking for some help on finding a William McNeil from Scotland. That's what they knew. They knew that their ancestors were McNeils, and they were looking for William McNeil. They had him listed as a birth of their oldest ancestor born in North America, and all they had on a death registration was that his father's name was William, and he was born in Scotland. I've run into the same thing when I've been looking for different ancestors, where it only says Ireland or Scotland, not necessarily a town or community. In this particular case, this person, I came across them because they were on a Facebook group, a Scottish Genealogy Facebook group, basically asking anybody if telling them that they're looking for information on their grandfather, William McNeil from Scotland. And you can imagine that would be quite a large possible number of people named William McNeil. Both are common first names and surnames, and given names, rather. Just the surname and the given name are both very common. So you would, I basically explained to her, it would be like me going to Times Square in New York and asking this, does anybody know John Smith? When you do that, when you go into a genealogy group for a region, you're asking a very vague question. But by looking at using the fan method, you can then look at, if you don't know anything about your ancestors' origin, you can look to see where they first settled. In this case, it was a person in Virginia, And in my case, it's in Halifax. And what I've been able to do personally is I've been able to look at the community and the place that they settled and where those people also were from in Ireland, because I might not have a record of my particular ancestor, but there might be information about them. Especially when you start looking at finding the same place multiple times, because often people, when they move to a new, they emigrated, they tend to want to go where there was already family, there was already people from their community that were there was some connection, and and if they didn't have the connection before they went, they basically found it, and that was something that could be a commonness that would bring them together. So reaching out and looking at doing a little bit of research about some of their neighbors, finding out what you can find about them. So often you can find very general things in the histories of communities where those people originally came from. Often the clues are in the names. They often like to rename their oh, thank you very much. Often they would rename their new community after their old one. So you want to see what clues you might have from that. Angry Auto Reacts, I appreciate you dropping by. So yeah, you want to use the fan method. That can sometimes help break down that wall, and sometimes it can take a little bit more work because you have to do that research about their neighbors and associates, and sometimes it can be you're looking very small. I'd look at at first the general. If they went to a community, look where generally those people are from, and then get down to your neighbors. Often too, you'll find that you'll have people that are married, your neighbors married to your different cousins or other of the ancestor you're looking for, or siblings. So you can often find records because of those as well. Collateral lines, these are ones where you start looking, you can't find anything about your ancestor. You can find one of the siblings of not a direct ancestor, a direct ancestor. So you start searching back on those siblings on their records and see what you can find. So then you also want to make sure you're using lesser known records, because people tend to look at the vital records as the main ones. That is a problem in a lot of research. That records do get lost because of war, other disasters such as fires, and where the records are stored. I know a lot of genealogy associations in different areas, they look to try to help rebuild some of those records by finding what else they can find. So that is a hard thing when you come across that. So then you have to just start looking at other sources. And I found an interesting source for a client recently. It was just it was in a, well, I don't want to, because of privacy, I'm not going to try not to give too much away, but it was in a police record about a relative. I was able to find some a little bit more information. It's not something that you would have found the thought to look at, but I've often spent time looking through police records for different things in research, and you can find a lot of, especially in the 1800s, I find you find a lot of things in small communities by looking at their police logs. Land and property records, often people overlook them. Often you think, oh, I don't need to do that. I know where they are. And it's very well right. You might know where they're established there, but if you start looking at more records, often they will give more detail on land and property, especially in Canada. A lot of the land grants that were given at different times, they would give a little bit of information about where the person was coming from. Probate and wills, and using this in a different way, looking for their hidden family members, married daughters. Also, the other thing with those you can look for is if if they gave money to a certain charitable organizations, you can find out sometimes if they are foreign, where that might be exactly, and chances are that is something connected to their home. And you also, if they gave to a particular organization, you might be able to start searching some of their records and finding what details they have about that. And then church records. Let me see. Church records, yeah, don't stick with one denomination. Check nearby parishes and churches for marriages and burials. Often there's not a church that they would continue in. Like this happens actually often with the Irish, because there was more of a problem of them being Catholic than being Irish. There's a lot of the discrimination comes from. So they would, in an attempt to hide their Irishness, they would join Anglican churches, and then it might be a generation or even later in that generation that they return to Roman Catholic Church. So you might look at other churches, and also looking what churches were around in the area at a particular time. Especially when you're looking at burials. If there was no local Anglican church, you're probably not going to find your ancestor buried in the Anglican church that's there in that community now. Graveyard, unless they're the ones that happen to donate the land for the graveyard. But be cognizant of where you're looking. Try to get histories of the churches that are there, so you might find, because there are some natural crossovers if people don't have their normal church. Yeah, that's a very good point. In Poland, and often things aren't registered where you would think. In England, a very common thing, especially people in Northern England, is they would actually go to Scotland to get married if they were getting married young. So look at the ages of the people that are getting married if you're looking for a marriage record. Because if they would be younger, you might find somebody that's from England married in Scotland. They had a little bit of different rules, and then they might be in the Church of Scotland marriage registration as opposed to an Anglican or other church as well. And again, these are just quick things. And then, look at the historical context. That's really the thing that's really important. Understanding the different patterns when people arrived. I actually did a project. I mapped a bunch of different people's records from this area, northern Nova Scotia and Cape Breton. And I looked at different ancestral groups and where they came from in Scotland. And I was able to actually make a map that is pretty consistent. If there is if they're from they're living in a certain region, that's where that's where they first landed in Nova Scotia, and they were Scottish. and that's where they first settled. You can you have a very high percentage from the research I've done on this and consistently is that they're from that area that I've researched and suggested. The other thing is the DNA matches. Now, this is the one thing that always gets myself and other genealogists when people are going on. When they do the DNA test, often people, they do it and you watch these videos and they're really just concerned on their ethnic origin, but there's so much more information. This third and fourth cousin can really help you a lot. Give me 1 second. I'm going to show you an example. And why I say they can show you a lot is just because they might have information that you don't have because they've already done the research. Okay. So I'm going to share this right now for a second. So if I go to my DNA matches, here's my DNA on my hair. It's very similar to if I was to go to Ancestry. Names are just a little different. So I'm looking at my matches. And then when I look at these matches, if I look at their family trees, a lot of times that's where you might find information you don't have. This particular person here is my grandmother on my father's side. This is one of her sister's sons. So he's my father's first cousin. So he's my first cousin. My second cousin once removed. And when I look at him, again, the side of the family I'm looking for will be on the Ryan side. He might have there might be information in his tree that I do not have. I've looked at this before, so I know it's pretty consistent with what I have. And it's actually his daughter who's looking after. He passed away, but manages his DNA and is looking after the weight. And I've kept in contact with her over the years, and we generally share information. But I never knew her before, though I might have met her at some point. But through these DNA connections, I was able to make contact, and we were able to that's another reason to research the siblings, because you might not even have the DNA, but you might I might find this is like I said, my grandmother's sister. When I might find out just through looking, if there wasn't a DNA match, even just that sibling, finding out information that the person who researched them made, because not everybody has done a DNA test. So I'm going to go back to here. So yeah, you want to look at your context in your DNA. And these are just my really simple tips. We're almost there. So again, checklist, look at timelines, map out things in chronological order. Have you viewed the original images, not just indexes? That's very important as well. Indexes are great to help lead you to something, but they're not the actual record. And yeah, list the 10 families before or after them and after them in the census. That's that's doing with the fan method. That's a good good baseline to use. Siblings, see what you can find with death records for all my your relatives, because, for instance, the grandfather, whatever great grandfather I know, that his father just died in Ireland, because that's what's on his death record. Maybe his brother actually has more information on his death registration because he knew this specific town. And then group your DNA matches together and try to identify family lines. The DNA on the site is getting better at actually doing that. There's a wonderful tool now on the Ancestry one where you can do your, it will do your clusters. So that's it. So yeah, any questions, anything anybody's struggling with that they want help with, let me know. Let me know in the chat there. Excuse me, I'm getting that cold. It's that time of year in Canada. Other than that, how's everybody doing today? So how is everybody doing today? And you guys all get the chance to watch the video I released earlier this week. If you watched my videos on the foreign province of Nova Scotia, this is I want to say the guy who but the guy who wrote the book. Cold wind blowing, snow. Oh yeah, we had some snow last week. It's a week before it's gone. Thankfully, I heard from people in Michigan the other day that I was talking with, and their power was up because of a bad snowstorm. So. So yeah, the video was, but the guy who basically wrote the book on foreign Protestants in Nova Scotia, Winford Pickford Bell, he just has a really interesting history aside from his family history and his genealogy. I discovered he was, and when I say I discovered, I'm not the person who discovered, I guess. The information was already there. But I did a story about him being a spy during post World War I in Germany, and some of the things he discovered. In fact, some of the things he did, he was also a philosopher, so he had a different take on the way he was acted as a spy, but also the way he understood information. He looked at it from philosophical aspects, and he was also a German scholar, so could translate German and understand it. And he was he was the first person in the English world to publish about the upcoming Holocaust. He basically predicted it. He talked about it. He was able to see by running some logic after he examined Mein Kampf and the beginning of just the period before World War II. And he had this information for half a year before the Germans invaded Poland, and nobody really took him seriously until they invaded Poland. And then a newspaper, because at this point it wasn't spy work, it was more just philosophical reasoning and understanding, and his understanding of German and logic as well. He had published an article basically explaining that was the Hitler's purpose. He had a goal that would be the extermination of non-Germans. So it's an interesting little story. So if you haven't watched it, I'd recommend go watching it. Yeah, no, sorry I missed this earlier. Yeah, you do get a lot of family names from wills. It's surprising the names you can get, because people, there's usually a reason why they're mentioned in the will. A lot of times it's relative, so often you'll find sisters, particularly so you'll be able to find their married names in wills. So that's basically what I had to go over today. And like I said, answer anybody's questions, anything specific, anything that's been challenging them in their family history research the past week or two. Let me know. I'm trying my live stream at a few different times. I'm just experimenting to see when people are available, because I've usually been doing it at 5 Eastern on Fridays, but I had a few people say that wasn't necessarily the best time, so I wanted to try something a little different. So I tried it on a Thursday this week at 3 Eastern or 4 Atlantic. And it's probably a little early for people that are still working, though it is a holiday in the United States, so I was thinking I might get some people from there who would be watching as well. If I don't have any questions, though, nope. Okay. And yeah, so that's, and what did you find that was fun about that ancestor? What was that's a, yes, and that is interesting. And then and even trying to figure out the story, well, why was that middle generation missed and not mentioned in the will? Because I mean, it could be often the grandfather thought that the mother was married. She was, she would have a husband that would be taking care of her, and he would be leaving things to other people. The mother might have already been in a position which well off. The grandfather just didn't feel the necessity, but he wanted to make sure that the grandchild was taken care of. I came across somebody else working on Quakers from Georgia 2 weeks ago. Actually, they're going to be in an upcoming podcast. Sorry, they were, I think, from Georgia or South Carolina. Can't remember. Might have been a bit of both. And they came to Canada as these people in this particular upcoming podcast. They'll be my December podcast. They came here as loyalists and still as Quakers. Okay, well, I think I'm going to sign off in a minute or two, and I want to thank you for dropping by. I'm not sure when I will be here next week. I'm going to try a different time. I might try still on a Thursday. Yeah, I think that's what happened in this case. These people were traced them to Georgia and then to South Carolina, and then eventually to Prince Edward Island. But they actually originally came from Pennsylvania and went down further south. So yeah, that's yeah, that can be a gap. That's like the gap that the angry otter reacts was talking about in, when records are missing. He was missing records from Italy from his ancestors because of the war. They were gone. That's also another thing sometimes that's happened. When a church ceases to be, they don't necessarily, because all the people moved elsewhere. They don't have sometimes the records from before in the new place. They wound up so. So yeah, so I think I'm going to wind it down here. If there's anybody who has questions, I'll do my last call, and then we can, if there's no questions, I'll head out.
Last call!
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time I need to announce it's last call at the bar.
Oh.
Okay, so this is the last call for questions. So if there's no further questions, I think I will head out for the day. I want to thank you all very much for dropping by. And yeah, drop in the chat if you're watching this on the repeat, drop in the chat when's a good time for you. When would you guys like to see me go live? What works best for you? Because I'd like to know. I'd like to plan this so we can have as many people here, and also any topics you guys want me to look at. That'd be great. I appreciate it. Keep searching for your ancestors.
Cross the Atlantic with nothing but names. Irish and Scottish blood in our veins. Work the mines and the boats in the land. Built this life with calloused hands. That's how we got here. Sword, water, and stone. That's how we got here. Carrying it home. That's how we got here. Gathering
Oh yeah. I wanted to introduce you guys to the newest member of my team. She is helping to take over some protective duties in my office for my other schnauzer. This is Clara, and she joined my family about 2 months ago. in September. She at the end of September. So say hi to Miss Claire, everybody, and she. So if you ever hear growling or grumbling on my videos, is probably the culprit. So again, I guess I'll say goodbye.
Cross the Atlantic with nothing but names, Irish and Scottish.